Hi, welcome to the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Making Studio. My name is Rose, and today we're going to do this awesome Kumihimo project. This beautiful braided, beaded autumn bracelet. Now we've done a similar video that's using the spiral Kumihimo braid without the beads. That's a little easier, so if you find this project difficult to do from these instructions, go to that video, learn your basic braid, and then come back and add the beads because there's a little added complexity to this. Okay, to start with, we're going to start with cord. I'm using an imitation nylon. It's a fairly inexpensive product, so I can use lots of it, and if I mess up, it's okay. But the main reason I chose this is because it's going to fit my beads. I wanted to use seed beads, but I need a fairly sizable hole to fit that cord. So I'm using a size 6 seed bead. And even then, sometimes this can be a little challenging because the cord can fray a little bit. And so I'm going to sort of make a needle out of the end of this cord using a little bit of fray lock. This is an E6000 product. It's great. It's air dry and it doesn't take very long. And for this one, I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Actually, I'll probably put it on my fingers. I'm going to end up with it all over my fingers. And just pull it out like that. Make sort of a needle. In fact, I want more. More! When in doubt, more glue. There we go. And I'm going to need 8 cords, so I'm going to need to do that 8 times, just saying. My basic rule of thumb for the length of cord is to do 3 times the length of whatever it is you're going to make. Since I'm making a bracelet, I'm going to use 3 times the length of my wrist. 1, 2, 3, and that's long enough. Cut that off. And you'll notice when I pulled that cord out that I was using this nifty spool tamer. This is another great Fire Mountain product. So easy. I have at home a huge bin full of tangled up cords. Use the spool tamers. It's a great thing. Hold the tab, pull the cord, easy breezy. Now I'm going to need 7 more of these cords of this length. Oh, looky. There just happens to be 7 more over there. Isn't that amazing? So that end is already glued. So since I have all 8 of my cords already cut, I'm going to make sort of glue needle ends on the ends of all of these. And I love to use E6000 Fray Lock. It's a great product. In this case, I'm just going to put a little bit of that Fray Lock into here and use it. Because I'm going to go ahead and get messy. That's right, I just use my fingers and smear that out. Set it aside, and there's 8 of them. And don't worry about, this dries pretty quick. You don't have to worry about it too much. Because while these ends are drying, we're going to work on the other end. This will prevent this fraying and any problems you might have. And if for some reason your cords get too soft and hard to get through the bead holes, you can always add a little more glue and do it again. And not to worry, these stiff ends will not end up in your beadwork because they'll end up getting cut off. Okay, on the other end, that's where we need to put our bead cap and tie all these cords together. So I've got all 8 of my cords here. I'm going to take a small length of Nymo beading thread. I only need, less than a foot. A little bit. Set that glue aside before I get it on me. I'm going to make a basic slip knot. For those of you who know how to make a slip knot. Just like that. Put it over the ends of my cords. Make sure I get all 8. I've been known to do this and suddenly only have 7 cords. So it's always a good idea just to count them, make sure before you get it all done. There are 8. Excellent. Tighten that up. This has to be really, really tight to make sure your cords are going to stay put when your bracelet's all done. Then I'm going to wrap around a few times. Nice and tight. and tie a knot. And don't worry that I've used black on orange either, because it's not going to show. It's going to be inside a bead cap. A nice tight knot. Make it a double knot. In my case, I'm actually going to make it a surgeon's knot, which is a double knot with an extra little twist to it. And tighten that up tight. Now this is a little different than the other Kumihimo video we showed you, because I want to show you more than one way to finish. So the next thing I'm going to use is a brass head pin. I'm going to put this head pin up through this knot. And to do that, I'm going to grip really close to the end of the head pin. If I grip way back here, it's going to bend as I try and work. So I'm going to grip it really close. I'm going to force that through the center of this bundle. Twisting and whatever I need to do to get it through that black cord that I have there. There it comes up through the center. Pull it all the way through, and the head pin is what's going to hold that all in place, nice and secure. Then I can trim off all this excess stuff. The black thread goes away. The excess orange, make sure you don't cut your black thread as you're cutting the orange threads away. I do this one at a time. I feel I get a little bit of a neater sort of look than when I do it, you know, in a big chunk with a pair of scissors. I like these little nippers. I like to take my time. Just keep it nice and neat. And then with that, I like to add a little more glue. Just to glue that in place before I add the bead cap. There we go. And I will wipe off my beading awl before I go too far. There we go. Add the bead cap. And for a really professional look, make a nice finished end on this. I'm going to add a rondelle. And I'm going to add a little round bead. I seem to always pick out these little beads that it's hard to see the hole. There we go. That makes for a nice professional looking end on your cord. And now I'm going to make a wrapped loop. To make a wrapped loop, I'm going to start, like almost all loops, with a 90-degree bend. But this time the 90-degree bend is going to be up a little bit above that round bead so that I have room for my wraps. Make a 90-degree bend. Take my round nose pliers, put right in there, loop over the top of my round nose pliers, reposition the jaw, go all the way around, and now I can do my wraps. So using my square nose pliers or chain nose, whatever you're using, I can make wraps right next to each other. And I usually count to 3, and I like my wraps to be the same on both sides, so I do count. So that looks 3 wraps. And I also use a very long head pin, because the longer head pin gives you some more leverage, it's a lot easier. And nip that off nice and tight. Being careful not to let that fly at my cameraman. And I might tweak that just a little bit, make it pretty. There we go. So we've basically got the whole end of this bracelet done. Time for the Kumihimo part. Yay! Okay. So we have lots of Kumihimo discs at Fire Mountain Gems. We have big ones, small ones, thick ones, round ones, and square ones. I'm going to use this particular disc. It really doesn't matter which one you use, as long as the hole in the center is big enough to accommodate your project. Pop that into the hole in the center and start placing the cords. And it even doesn't really matter here, as long as they're in opposite sides. But I'm going to put one in 1. I'll put one in 32. I'll go over here on this side, and I'll put one in 8. And I'll put another one over in 9. Imagine that. Then we'll get the bottom ones done. Put one in 16, one in 17, and the last 2, 24 and 25. And you're all set up with your Kumihimo disc. Now what I want to do is add the beads, because that is the whole point of this one, is beads. Okay, so our glue ends are nice and dry now, and we can start adding the beads. On this particular project, we did sort of an ombre look with lots of different colors, and so I actually have a chart for how to arrange those beads in that way. And guess what? Ta-da! This one's almost all done. I've done 8 of the strands already. I've got 1 more strand to do, and I'll show you how I get that done. There we go. This is my last strand on my chart. And these beads are not perfect either. Sometimes you'll find a bead that's still, the hole is a little bit too small for your cord. So don't be afraid to set those aside for a different project. Pick out the ones that work well. There's 2. Okay, so I've got all my beads according to my chart onto that last cord. And I could use a huggy spool here, to hold the extra cord, but it's only a bracelet. It's not that long, not really needed. I could use a bead stopper to crimp the end of this, but you know what? The easiest thing to do, tie a little slip knot. That works just great. Okay, so to start this Kumihimo braid, it starts the exact same way that the basic spiral does, because we're not going to add the beads right away. I'm going to start from the top right, from space number 1, and take it down to space number 15. Then I'm going to pick up number 17, bring it up to the top to 31. Rotate clockwise. Do it again. Top to bottom, bottom to top. Clockwise, same direction. Top to bottom, bottom to top. Rotate. And we're going to keep doing this for 8 cycles. Just plain with no beads added at all. So that was 4, I believe. There's 5. And 5. And rotate. 6. And 6. Rotate. 7. And 7. Notice I'm using one of the thick discs on this segment. This is particularly good if you're using fine cords like silk thread. It grips the thread really well. 7. Oh, that was 8, wasn't it? That was 8. There we go. So that's just the beginning of our braid. Now it's time to add the beads. Excuse me a moment while I untangle my cords. Okay, so now we're ready to add the beads. I've got this here in the right position. I'm going to grab this top cord. I'm going to slide 1 bead down. And this is where it starts getting tricky, is you've got to place this just right. This is a quadrant. We have 4 quadrants. I want to drop that bead into that quadrant right there. And it has to be underneath this cord to hold it all in there. As I pull it back and put it into this slot down here at the bottom, it's being held in place by that cord. Then I'll take this one from the bottom and I will drop a bead into there, just 1 bead, into this quadrant. It has to be under that cord. So as I pull this up and place it in place, it's trapped under that cord. Rotate and repeat. Dropping 1 bead down there, slips into this quadrant right here, under that cord, pop it in there and it's locked in place. If at any point it isn't where you want it to be, that's where another one of my favorite tools, the beading awl, comes into place. If it's not where you want it to be, use your beading awl to get it where it needs to be. Then the bottom one. Drop it down, tuck it under, put that in place. And we're going to keep doing this. There are 22 beads on each one of these strands. We're going to keep doing this until all the beads have been used up. Dropping a bead into the quadrant, under that cord, and tuck it in place. Oops, gotta finish this side. Take that one, drop a bead into that quadrant, tuck it in place. Oh, it slipped out. Don't want it over there. I want it under there. Stay. Okay. So we stepped away and come back to get to this braid, which is nearly done. And you'll notice I've also switched discs. This is the same disc, only a narrower pattern. We didn't want to make you watch me do all of those beads. Now we'll move on to the finishing touches. Same pattern, we haven't changed a thing. Pick up one cord, drop a bead. There we go. And keep rotating, keep dropping beads into that quadrant. I hope you all feel you can do this after watching this. But remember that we do have the simplified version without the beads, just to teach you the braid. Then you can add the beads as you get comfortable. Took me a while before I got to the beads stage. Another thing you do, as you drop those beads in, every time I pull this out, I also give a nice good firm pull on it to make sure I get my tension right. You don't want to, well, maybe you do want a loose braid, but I like mine pretty tight. So every time I pull one out, I give a pretty good tug on my braid. I forget I do it because I just do it automatically. I thought I'd tell you that. And that's it. Okay, now for the finishing of this, remember on the other end we had a head pin stuck in there? I'm going to do the same thing. I would put a head pin in there, and I'm going to do 8 times around with standard Kumihimo, no braiding, nothing fancy, and weave that head pin into my pattern. I really want this to be nice and tight so it'll hold my head pin really tight. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that head pin's not super tight yet, but what we're going to do now is do just like we did before, a little piece of Nymo. Going to make a nice slip knot. Down over my braid. Down here to the end. And pull it tight. And just like I did on the other end. In fact, I'm going to take this off the disc. It's going to be easier. There we go. Just like I did on the other end, I'm just going to wrap that around really tight. tie a knot. That was a simple granny knot. Now make that into a surgeon's knot by tying this twice. There we go. And just like on the other end, make sure this is nice and secure. Trim off all this excess. Don't need that. I don't need all these orange cords anymore. Save those for a pair of earrings or something. And you can see I cut this cord plenty long. And we're going to finish this one the same way we finished the other one. First, I'm going to add a little bit of glue. I still have some wet glue over here. That's nice. A little bit of glue. Just to, I don't know, my extra security. I'm like one of those people who wears suspenders and a belt. Just a little extra security. The bead cap. Exactly like on the other side. Rondelle. Little bead. And now a wrapped loop. Just like I did on the other side. Leave a little bit of space for the wrappings. Make a 90-degree bend. Use your round nose pliers to make a loop. Reposition the pliers to finish the loop. And take your chain nose pliers to wrap the loop. And like usual, I'm kind of a 3-loop kind of girl, so I did 3. There we go. Trim off the excess. Almost there. Last thing we're going to do is to add that finishing bit, which is the clasp, the jump rings, and these great autumn charms. Well, not only am I a suspenders and belt kind of person, I'm also a double jump ring girl. So I'm going to put a double jump ring by twisting it open. Put it there. And to save myself opening more jump rings, we're going to go ahead and add this large oval next. Twist it shut. And here's the double jump ring. I'm going to double up that round one. It's a little decorative element, and it makes me feel like it's a little bit stronger. That jump ring is not as thick a gauge as the oval, so I'm going to double that one up and make it strong. I'm a bit rough on jewelry, so I need extra strength in mine. I want to make this just like this one, so I'm going to use a second one. It also makes it the right length for me. And another oval. This is always a good technique when you've made something maybe a little shorter than you intended. It's a good idea to have just some extra jump rings. It also gives you lots of variation. You can make it more custom for your customer or your friend or your family member, the length you need it to be. Let's see, how did I end that? Okay, double jump ring to the clasp. Also, I find that the bar end of the clasp, it's good for it to have a little more freedom of movement so it goes into the circle end of your clasp just a little bit easier. Twist. Okay, that looks good. Let's do the other side. What I got on the other side? I've got 4 of these guys. And last thing is these great little leaves. They come in an assortment of colors. I've got one in orange and one in antique gold and one in green. And I made a little chain out of those little guys with these small round jump rings. So I'll put one on a jump ring. I'll put another one on another jump ring. And hook these 2 together. Then one more jump ring. For this gold one. Hook it into my little chain that I've got going here. Then I'm going to hook that onto the end. Look at that. It takes a little time, but boy, do you get a beautiful, professional result out of Kumihimo with beads. I hope you enjoy this project and I hope you don't give up. Go check out the easy one, come back and do this one, because you could use any color you want, you can do any decoration you want, and what a great gift this would make for your friends and family. Thanks for joining me at Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Making Studio. Find all these great projects at firemountaingems.com and all the great products to make them with. Thanks for joining me. Happy beading!